You know that big, long, clunky Harry Potter spell sounding word for face blindness? I've got it. When I first heard about Chuck Close, the dude who makes faces out of pixels from that one Paul Simon album cover, I had my first big think about it not being normal how I think. It took me a solid year or two before I learned that I shouldn't pronounce the second P with an F sound. True story. And about as long to reconcile with having it despite drawing art with a bunch of cartoon faces in it. I mean, I'd be asking myself all kinds of existential questions like, is there an inherent glass ceiling here that normal people don't have that's going to make my art mediocre at best, regardless of how many hours I put into it? It just made me not want to bother trying. I ended up finding solace in having a quote-unquote vibe that other people otherwise can't have. Is it Uncanny Valley vibes? Probably. But it's my Uncanny Valley vibes. Anyways, to the meat and potatoes, what the heck is this stuff? Prosopagnosia, a word I'd love to break down the way Chubby Emu does with words like hyponatremia, but sadly I've got the big stupid, is the inability to conjure up a face in one's mind or recognize people based on their face alone. It comes in two forms, developmental and acquired. Basically, it can be born in, or people can get it from brain damage. Stuff like strokes, concussions, tumors, encephalitis, you name it. Do I know which one I've got? I have no idea. I don't have any memories of not having it, but there's still a handful of times I could have gotten brain damage, and that makes me a little paranoid. Let's see. One time when I was 9-ish, I was walking on the sidewalk curb and tripped on my own foot before belly flopping face first onto the street. Throughout my childhood, I had a few metal toy cars thrown at my head by my little brother hard enough to make me cry. There was one time a few years ago where I drunkenly tripped over a guitar case and slammed my forehead into my door frame. I got a really bad tooth infection that puffed the heck out of my cheek 2 years ago. To drop one more opportunity on the pile, I got hit by a truck while prone on a longboard 4 months ago. They gave me CT scans and they look pretty normal though, but I'm not a doctor. Most of the damage was to my shoulder and I didn't have a skull fracture. Either way, if I've got brain damage, I have no idea what kind of glitches are comorbid with mental illness, past psychedelic use that I'm not going to elaborate on, or TBI shenanigans. So I'm probably not going to be... So I'm probably a nightmare for any psych who isn't a beholder to fully diagnose. One of the few things I know for sure is that I've been terrible at picturing faces in my head for a while, and I don't recognize people by face. My mind's eye is like this big abstract glob of mind dust that can roughly approximate sonar simulation looking stuff, but the sonar can bounce off stuff like flat pictures somehow. It's weird. Sometimes I think about it like it's aphantasia, but it's definitely something different because it's collectively agreed that aphantasia means having a completely blank imagination. That mind dust stuff is in every color and no color at all at the same time in a kind of like superposition. But when I think back to something I pictured, I can say what color it was in retrospect. A little like a mental takeaway from just finishing watching a play. If I had the chance to coin a word for it, I'd call it sonargia, because that's the best way I can describe it. Someone out there might already have a better word for it, so I won't hold my breath. Anyways, face blindness. Got sidetracked there. You might be wondering if I've got some hallucinatory goggles on that make me see everyone without eyes, noses, or mouths. I don't. I see people the same way, kinda. I don't hear many people talk about this in particular because it's kind of hard to articulate. It's almost like faces when I focus on them. They float off and project straight onto my eyes like there's a magic sticker on my eyeballs that vanishes the moment I look somewhere else. You know those games with HUDs? It's a little bit like that. I can see someone making a pretty accurate simulation in a video game. Maybe some kind of detectives thing where there's this mind palace where they either process stuff that went down earlier or stuff they didn't see themselves. That stuff's for a better mind than mine though, because I can barely comprehend how to make this video not boring, let alone a whole video game. So, with face blindness and a really abstract imagination, how do I make art? It's simple enough. I use patterns. Strangely enough, I've still got pareidolia. That thing that makes you see car headlights and bumpers as faces. So I know semantically what ends up ticking the box of face in my head. Eyes go here, nose goes there, mouth goes there, ear goes wherever the heck I feel like. I don't see it differently to drawing Zentangle patterns because next to nobody plants those. It's just this mad science that involves enjoying the moment and getting a reveal at the end as a little cherry on top. I don't know if I end up empathizing with the faces that I accidentally make, or if I accidentally make them feel what I literally feel at the time, like a Freudian slip or something. It's like the way that I hear the artist's voice during a speed draw and I go, yeah, that vibe checks out. Other than making art a little weird, face blindness generally makes it really difficult to maintain relationships with people. Back when I was a kid in school, I'd get nervous about going up to talk to people I thought that I recognized because I had a nightmare scenario in my head where I confused a stranger for them. What's worse is that it actually happened once. I had this friend that I nicknamed Meg as an inside joke for Megward the Wizard. He was this ganglion, nerdy redhead kid with pale skin, a big forehead, short hair, and glasses. I thought I recognized him when I was walking by the park one day, and I said something like, Meg? Before I immediately realized my mistake because the guy was looking at me like a schizo. That brings me to, how do I recognize people? Imagine there's this big stack of those shiny holographic cards that you can hold at one angle and see Spider-Man or something, but most angles they're blank. Every card in the stack is really shuffled up, but you can take a card out and put it in a drawer somewhere after looking at it. If you open the drawer later and pick up a card in it, you can make an educated guess that it's the card that you put in the drawer earlier. It's something like that. Plus, I remember stuff like what people's voices sound like, how they dress, how they walk, their shape, hair color, just not their face. It's mostly voices that I tell people apart with, though. I can't even picture what my own face looks like. It's almost like looking at GoPro footage from some YouTube channel that hasn't done a face reveal yet, but described in words what they look like in a passing joke or something. I can guesstimate, but I'll never have the real thing. Is this stuff the ego death holy grail that psychonauts want? If it is, then I can't exactly say what there is to get out of it, to be honest. Yeah, maybe if, like tourists, they peeked in and went back to being normal, there'd be some revelation or epiphany with the juxtaposition. But being stuck this way is exhausting and difficult to recommend. 0 stars on Yelp. Do they use stars on Yelp? I don't know. I hope this video serves the purpose of a trip like that so people can save their acid money. In a strange way, I've come to realize that all art is psychoactive in a way, but I don't know if it's a result of my delusions or what's been naturally elucidated by my unique perspective. This might be completely unrelated, but I kind of perceive listening to music while tripping on something to be using a polysubstance. Even just looking at paint drying while on something is a polysubstance in my eyes. Anyways, I hope you learned something from this, I guess. But yeah, I hope this was a nice little mind vacation, a little empathy generator or something like that Roger Ebert quote I'm butchering right now. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll happily Anyways, if you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll happily answer any comments with questions, and I'd love to hear if anybody else has that weird sonarsia, faux aphantasia thing going on.